And this is where the big debate comes in, because it feels like there's also grudges being held by these writers, okay? Should there be changes to how players are voted into the Hall of Fame? I think yes.
Yes.
You think yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Way too dated.
Way too dated. I believe there should be some sort of committee. You don't want to push out the writers, all right? Yes, there should still be writers that are able to vote, but maybe it's not everybody. It's voted on for the writers. You have 1 to 5 from each team, from each area that are kind of the representative for the writers. But I think there needs to be people that are involved in the game, baseball executives, owners, GMs. Maybe the Players Association has, whether they are already Hall of Famers or players that are so involved in helping the Players Association. There just needs to be more of an inclusive, well-rounded voting in situation, rather than having it all be the Baseball Writers Association of America. There needs to be more. It needs to be more eclectic.
I have the answer.
Yeah.
Here is how we fix the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame voting. You keep the 75% thing that's currently in place.
Yeah.
And we don't boot out the baseball writers altogether.
Okay.
We keep them involved.
Mm-hmm. All of them? So you still want to keep all of them involved?
You have that system in place. You have the baseball writers. You have all current alive Hall of Famers as a separate group.
Yep.
And former Major League Baseball players with at least 10 years service time.
Mm-hmm.
3 separate voters, 3 separate categories. And if you get 75% in any of those categories, you are a Hall of Famer.
In any of them?
In any of them.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be collective. Just from one of those groups, you have to get 75%.
You got to get 75% from one of them. Because they're all former MLB players with 10 years service time, current alive Hall of Famers, or the baseball writers. That's kind of all over the map there. The baseball writers, love them or hate them, they haven't all played baseball. Some of them haven't even played at the high school level. Yeah. But they do have a place in the game. They're great at what they do. Nobody watches more in their city than them. So they do have a place, and I don't just want to completely boot them out. But the system as it sits is old school.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is these baseball writers, in a sense, have become gatekeepers of the Hall of Fame. We can't allow that. We can't allow these baseball writers that might hold a grudge against X player because they didn't give them an interview 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago to say, nope, he's not getting into the Hall of Fame because I have that power. Great, you do have power, but there will be somebody else, if this player is deserving, that will allow them to get in, whether it be former major leaguers with a bunch of service time or current alive Hall of Famers that you know will only vote in Hall of Famers. They don't want to they don't want to muddy the class, so they're going to be strict with their vote. Former major leaguers will be good because they played with these players, and then the baseball writers that have been there. So creating other avenues other than just these baseball writers that have become, in a way, gatekeepers. And I don't want to say that in a bad way, but there are other players, in my opinion. Let's take the steroid situation out of it. Okay? Steroids has become an interesting topic in the Hall of Fame voting. I believe Barry Bonds should be in.
100%.
And when Barry Bonds gets in, Roger Clemens needs to be in that conversation. But these baseball writers, look, here's an example for you. Pete Rose, all-time hits leader, not on the ballot, right? Because Major League Baseball said he's banned from baseball. He can't be in the Hall of Fame. These other guys, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, they weren't banned and they were on the ballot. The baseball writers have taken it upon themselves to say, no, we're making this a rule. You can't get in because you took steroids or have been associated with it. Well, you guys made that up. You guys came up with that. Like, you can't have a Hall of Fame, the very best baseball players of all time, without acknowledging that some of the greatest baseball players even existed.
Yeah.
You go to the Hall of Fame now and it's like, what?
What?
Where's the all-time home runs leader? The current Hall of Fame does not have the all-time Major League Baseball home run leader, the all-time hits leader, the all-time Cy Young Award leader, the men who revived baseball with the home run chase in the late 90s, McGuire and Sosa. They're nowhere to be found. So Look, we've gone down this rabbit hole before. Put another wing, acknowledge that steroids happened, but acknowledge them. But I do think there needs to be other avenues for players to get in. Other avenues for players like Todd Helton, who just came short this year. I do believe Todd Helton will get in. I wish he was in already. But a couple of names that I would like to see get in that came up a little bit short this year. Todd Helton finished with 72.2% of the vote, 11 votes shy of being a Hall of Famer. Look, Todd Helton is getting Coors Field bias in the opposite. This is ridiculous. Todd Helton isn't getting in because he played at Coors Field, which isn't his fault, by the way. That's just where he played his entire career. But you want to talk about the Coors Field bias? Sure. High elevation, numbers are going to be a bit boosted there. Todd Helton was a career 287 hitter on the road. Scott Rowland was a career 281 hitter altogether. Todd Helton was a career 287 hitter on the road, career 316 hitter, 369 homers, 1,400 RBIs. Todd Helton should be a Hall of Famer. Andrew Jones should be a Hall of Famer. 58.1% of the vote. 10 straight Gold Glove awards. I grew up a huge Atlanta Braves fan. Andrew Jones was the guy. It was actually both Joneses, Andrew and Chipper. I wanted to be them. Andrew Jones out in the outfield, Chipper Jones over at third base. Billy Wagner, 68.1% of the votes, but a few names that haven't gotten in yet that I think should.
Yeah. So we were on a very similar thought process with updating the voting process.
Yeah.
So there should be a board of trustees, and I think we combine our two, and you have 4 wings, okay? You have the writers who still get to vote. You have the baseball executives, the owners, the GMs, people who've been involved in the game for an extremely long time and have their hand in the game. Then you have the Hall of Famers that are still around and want to vote. And then you have the players who have played in the league 10 years plus. That feels like a fair way of getting the players who deserve in from your peers, from your colleagues, and then the writers who have been a part of this process since it began. That seems fair.
I think we nailed it.
That seems fair.
Alex and I just figured out how to vote for the Hall of Fame. Thanks for watching. If you love Flippin Bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.